Welcome into OutKick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a fantastic Wednesday, wherever you may be across this great country or this great land. Busy day. Encourage you to go download the newest Clay Travis Buck Sexton radio program show. It's up as a podcast. We are one of the biggest podcasts in the country already. Certainly, we are the biggest radio show in the country. Thank all of you for the feedback that we have received so far hosting that program. Also just finished, the reason I'm a little bit late today with this show is because I just finished Fox Bet Live. We were a little bit early with that show. I'll be on around the same time Thursday. Be somewhat flexible on Friday with the time that I am going to be on with you guys. A lot to dive into. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. And let's get right in, right off the top. Major League Baseball has got to end the pitcher checks. It's time for Major League Baseball to do away with all these ridiculous pitcher checks. If you didn't see the videos, guys, when we share this clip, let's go ahead and splice in. So it's a little bit spicy too because there's ridiculousness going on there. All the different pitchers who are being checked for sticky substances, and they're basically getting strip searched. I don't know how many of you saw these videos, but it's time for Rob Manfred to end this searching. I understand that there is the belief that pitchers have been taking advantage of rules and they've been cheating and all these different things. But when you're in a position where pitchers are challenging managers to fights, Joe Girardi looked bad, by the way. You got pitchers undoing their pants and dropping their pants to allow themselves to be checked. This is an experiment that has gone deeply awry. It no longer makes any sense no matter who you are or what your original intent was. MLB is falling apart here. It's time to make that change. By the way, College World Series. Vanderbilt playing Stanford tonight. If you are not watching the College World Series, these games are unbelievable. Last night, Mississippi State with an incredible comeback win over UVA. Mississippi State in great place. NC State in a great place. Vanderbilt going up against Stanford. We'll see who ends up advancing out of there. And then Texas is going to be taking on Virginia. Only, 6 teams left. One of them will be gone, either Vanderbilt or Stanford tonight. If you aren't watching these games, I encourage you to watch them. I think the College World Series is the most underrated sporting event that is going on in America right now. So encourage all of you to be watching that. Defund the police. In my humble opinion, and you guys know how humble I always am, in my humble position, defund the police died last night officially in the New York City mayoral race because Eric Adams, who is a 22-year veteran of the New York Police Department in the Democratic primary, he is going to win, barring all sorts of craziness. And let me explain exactly how this worked. They have ranked choice voting going on in New York City, so there are a lot of different directions that this can still go. But in an interesting angle, it's almost unheard of for someone to end up winning who was up by as much as Eric Adams is up. Maya Wiley is who he ended up beating. This is a Democratic civil war over defund the police. Maya Wiley didn't just want to defund the police, even though she had her own private security guards. She also wanted to potentially take away police's guns. What they would protect themselves with, she didn't explain. Eric Adams came out and said, look, we need aggressive policing. We need to allow people to come back and actually be able to take care of their communities. And this is not just a New York City issue, by the way. This is crime surges in cities across the country versus last year. Atlanta, murders are up 58%. New York City, murders are up 13% off of a big number last year. Portland, Oregon, murders are up 533% over last year in Portland, Oregon. Chicago up 5%, LA up 22%, and Philadelphia up 37%. All of these increases are off of substantial increases that had happened in 2020 as well. We've got murder rates skyrocketing. Why is that? Because we've defunded police, at least arguably, because we have taken away their ability to police. And so, what is interesting about this is they polled New York City residents, fairly liberal city, New York City, and they said, hey, what's your top concern in this mayoral primary for Democrats? 50% of people said their primary concern was crime or violence. Just 20% said racial injustice. This is Democrats now. So Democrats have already moved rapidly from being most concerned about racial injustice to now crime and violence wildly overtaking racial injustice inside of the Democratic Party. And there's a civil war going on here, and I think Eric Adams' win over Maya Wiley effectively ends the Democratic Civil War. There's also some pretty fascinating aspects here. Andrew Yang flamed out in this presidential election. Eric Adams has 14,000 Twitter followers. Andrew Yang has 1.9 million Twitter followers. Yet Eric Adams crushed Andrew Yang in the Democratic primary of New York City for the mayoral spot last night. Twitter isn't real life. There is this obsession with the idea that whatever happens online is a reflection of the real world. If it were, then Andrew Yang having 1.9 million Twitter followers compared to 14,000 for Eric Adams, that would have translated in some way. We saw this before, by the way. Joe Biden was the least active on social media of any, really, of the Democratic candidates, yet he ended up winning the Democratic nomination. And I do think this is instructive, all right? I said defund the police died in New York City in the mayor's race. I want to read. You know, I'm old school. I bring out a lot of times columns here. And Joe Biden came out today to talk about defund the police and actually talk about going after gun control. He's trying to address the skyrocketing rates of crime and violence in this country. And Thomas Friedman, who I think is a really smart columnist, he wrote a column called "Want to Get Trump Reelected? Dismantle the Police." And his column, look, I like Thomas Friedman. I think he's a really smart guy. I've read several of his books. But he tried to focus on Trump in this column, but ultimately what he can't ignore is that homicide rates in large cities, most of them being run by Democrats, are up 30% on average last year. They were up. And this year they're up another 24% in the beginning of the year. And he's pointing out that the issue is that Democrats could really get sunk here. And he talks about Minneapolis in particular, where all of this defund the police, Black Lives Matter argument started surrounding George Floyd in the 2020 version of that. He quotes a woman named Sandra Samuels who wants not to defund the police, but she wants to refund the police and give them more money, not less, making sure that they continue to protect her community while doing so in a safe way. And she talked about in this column what I think should be an oftentimes top story. She said a 9-year-old girl named Trinity Otteson Smith was killed by a stray bullet while jumping on a trampoline in Minneapolis, where the crime rate is skyrocketing. This 9-year-old girl that most of you haven't heard of. And this woman, Sandra Samuels, who runs what's called the North Side Achievement Zone, said, for the last year, I and my neighbors have watched black mothers react with incredulity when their child is killed in community violence and not by a white cop. Their tragedies do not trigger citywide protest rallies. People don't say their child's name, and there are no citywide demands that this has to stop. She's talking about all the kids that are dying in cities because police are not being allowed to do their jobs. Now look, defund police has a tangible and real and significant cost. And the cost is not being borne by the rich, private security guarded political figures who are arguing in favor of defund the police. Guys, girls, black, white, brown, Asian, Hispanic, everybody out there believes that defunding the police is a bad idea, except for a small cadre of blue checkmark brigade members who are extremely active on social media. In fact, what they have done in arguing to defund the police is they have led to thousands of additional deaths that are likely to have been prevented if police were able to do their job. And this is what Thomas Friedman is writing about. Now, he has to do his typical Donald Trump is awful before he actually gets to his point here in this column. But the headline is, want to get Trump reelected, dismantle the police. Defund the police is the dumbest political argument of the 21st century. There is no basis in reality for it. We already knew exactly what was going to happen. As soon as you pull police out of being allowed to police in neighborhoods, cities, states, do you know what happens? The criminal element moves in and the crime rate skyrockets. This is not uncertain. We saw this with the Ferguson effect. When you delegitimize police, murders, mostly of minorities, skyrocket. Safety plummets in inner city neighborhoods. We need more police, not less. Credit to Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, who came out today and said, we need 100,000 new cops. Do you know who he sounds like when he says that? Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton won election in 1992, combating the massive crime wave that was then overtaking much of the country by putting more police officers on the streets. Instead of demonizing police, we need to be lauding them, praising them, encouraging them, and hiring more of them. Last night, game 2, DeAndre Ayton, perfect pass to win the game. But before that happened, Paul George missed 2 free throws, and we also had Booker get called for dribbling the ball out of bounds, and it took about 35 minutes to play the final minute and a half of the game. I was up because I don't have to be up as early in the morning now. I know many of you were already asleep because you do have to be up early in the morning. But they need to address a couple of things. They can't go look at the monitor for every single play down the stretch run of a game. For 46 minutes, they don't allow, by and large, plays to be replayed incessantly. And then in the final 2 minutes, they decide to replay everything. But what a pass that was to DeAndre Ayton. Devin Booker made a big shot as well. Paul George choked. I think that the Suns are going to win this in 4 games. I think with now Chris Paul coming back, it is going to make a substantial difference going forward as to how he is able to have some success. I think the Suns are going to advance to the NBA Finals, and I think Adam Silver is going to jump off the Empire State Building because nobody's going to watch. I want to tell you, erectile dysfunction affects over half of all men, but it doesn't have to make you feel like half of a man. Since 2017, My Dr. Hank has been making America hard again. My Dr. Hank helps you get low-cost ED meds and overcome the psychological and emotional barriers to getting ED treatment. They secure your prescription, ship it to you discreetly every month from U.S. pharmacies, all for as low as $2 a pill. So don't wait. Join the movement to make America hard again. Go to mydrhank.com/clay and sign up today. Tell Dr. Hank I sent you. He'll give you 50% off your first subscription order. That's mydrhank.com/clay. Offer available for only a limited time. I don't know how many of you saw this story, the Carl Nassib story. He announced that he was gay. It's basically Michael Sam all over again. And initially there was a great deal of praise for Carl Nassib for speaking out and sharing his homosexuality. But then it emerged, and I don't even know what Carl Nassib's overall politics are, but then Twitter started to trend yesterday. If you didn't notice, there was an accusation that he was a Republican that was trending, and also that he was a Trump voter. Now, I don't know anything about Carl Nassib at all. I welcome any adult to make any decision that makes them happier in any facet of life, so long as it's legal. I think a consenting adult should be able to be involved in it. It just really doesn't impact me at all. I'm pro-happiness, and if you get happier in any way by being more honest with yourself, more power to you. But I do think it's interesting that the same people who were on social media, the Blue Checkmark Brigade members, lecturing everyone about the Carl Nassib example, as soon as they found out that he might be a Republican or a Trump supporter, all of that inclusion disappeared. And my perspective is this: I don't care about your politics. And some people are stunned by that, but I really don't. As long as you tell me what you believe, we can agree or disagree, and we can go out and have a beer, we can sit and watch a game. I just don't care. The idea that I would have to have a litmus test in order to be a fan or a friend of anybody is crazy to me, based on politics or religion or sexuality or anything else. What I have found is the things that you decide yourself are more interesting than your identity, the things you don't choose, right? Like, I'm a guy. I didn't get to choose to be male. I'm happy to be a dude. I didn't get to choose to be a white guy. I just am. Those are pretty uninteresting things I think about me. The things that make you interesting are choices that you make in your life. Politics makes you interesting. I might not agree with you, but if you're smart and you can make a cogent argument for what you believe, that's fine. I probably won't sit around and talk about politics with you, just like I probably won't sit around and be upset if you're an Alabama Crimson Tide fan and I'm a Tennessee fan, or if you are an Indianapolis Colts fan and I'm a Titans fan. We share sports fandom. I would be interested in having a conversation with any sports fan. This idea on social media, which rapidly takes root, is, oh, you have to support this person until there's something that is different about that person, and then, oh, they don't fit the identity that I wanted them to fit, and so I'm going to toss them aside. And I thought that was interesting because in the space of basically 24 hours on Twitter, Carl Nassib, the defensive end for the Oakland Raiders, went from a hero to the same people who were saying, oh my God, he's such a hero, being upset because he was potentially a Republican who might have supported Donald Trump. I thought that was kind of fascinating. Want to tell you, did you see that the story came out of the Supreme Court this morning? A high school student won an 8-1 decision in the Supreme Court over whether or not she could do Snapchat videos off campus criticizing elements of her high school over, I believe, not making a cheerleading squad. She had been punished for the Snapchat videos, which had been filmed, again, off campus. She sued, saying that violated her First Amendment rights, and the Supreme Court, by a margin of 8-1, agreed with her. And let me say this. Remember all the people out there who told you that the Supreme Court was going to be a disaster if Amy Coney Barrett was on it, and if Brett Kavanaugh was on it, and if Gorsuch was on it, the three people that Donald Trump nominated? It's amazing how many of these Supreme Court decisions, including the NCAA decision that came down earlier this week on Monday, it's amazing how many of them are 9-0, 8-1, 7-2 style decisions. There's a lot of agreement that the Supreme Court is ending up with. I think this is an expansive position to take for the First Amendment. As a First Amendment absolutist, this was an intriguing case because there's a 1969, I believe it was, Supreme Court case about speech at school and what control high schools and elementary schools and middle schools, public schools, could have over student speech at school. This, because of technology, Snapchat, obviously, phones, it'll be interesting to think about going forward as kids are making statements outside of school that everybody at school is able to see. What sort of First Amendment protections do those students have? In this example, the Supreme Court gave an expansive amount of protection to those kids over what exactly was going on there. I want to tell you, guess what? Summer, it's getting closer and closer. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? You're in luck if so, because our friends at Manscaped, they have the Lawnmower 4.0. And I have got the Lawnmower 4.0 right here for you. And I got to tell you, if you know how hot it can get in the summer, and you know how much grooming you have to take care of with your own upper and lower body extremities, getting ready for that beach bod, getting hooked up with your swimsuit, whatever it might be, how about taking care of your grooming needs with the Weed Whacker ear and the lawnmower trimmer? You can get all hooked up with all of the different opportunities and availabilities from Manscaped. The Performance Package 4.0 includes the lawnmower. It works great. It's a ball trimmer that's fantastic. And you can also use this, it's waterproof, to try to keep you from being able to make a mess. You've also got the Weed Whacker. It's also waterproof, takes care of your nose and ear trimming, and Again, right now, you can get an incredible offer with the Performance Package 4.0. You also get Manscaped Boxers, Shed Travel Bag, all of this rolling in an incredible offer. And right now, you get 20% off and free shipping with the code DBAP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code DBAP20 at manscaped.com. Get your right here Lawnmower 4.0. You'll be glad that you did it. Escape the shrubs and weeds this summer and shine with Manscaped and all of the great products that they have to take care of you. The NFL Network. Did you see this news? Wall Street Journal reporting just a little while ago, maybe an hour ago, that the NFL Network is potentially for sale, as well as NFL Red Zone. All of the NFL's media-related properties could be selling at a high valuation here. And the question that I think is fascinating would be, could Amazon sweep in and buy the NFL Network? They've already bought Thursday Night Football. Would Amazon be interested in buying the NFL Network and making it a part of the Amazon Prime universe? I don't know the answer, could Netflix, could Facebook, or is this going to be a property that ends up being bought by one of the usual suspects, your Disneys, your Comcasts of the world? I would place a small wager right now on the NFL Network potentially being purchased by Amazon as an outgrowth of their growing interest in the overall sports community, potentially from a sports gambling perspective as well there, depending on how all is said and done. Finally, look, sometimes dumb things are said. Sometimes things are said that are so insanely dumb that it's tough to even ever get past. Jay Willams, who I think is a good dude. I do like Jay Willams, former Duke point guard, now does, I believe, sports talk radio in the mornings for ESPN. The Boston Celtics have hired a new coach. And Jay Willams tweeted out, the first head coach of color for the Celtics, and even more importantly, he is one talented individual who's paid his dues. The challenge is, the Celtics had already had 5 other head coaches of color. Doc Rivers recently, you would think that at a minimum, that Jay Willams would remember Doc Rivers. Bill Russell, Casey Jones, M.L. Carr, and Coach Sanders, all of those guys, previously black head coaches of the Boston Celtics. This is an example of where social media can lead a lot of people astray when they totally buy in to identity politics. Do you remember the angry tweet that we saw when Brian Flores was hired by the Miami Dolphins? And I don't remember who exactly it was, but one of the Blue Checkmark Brigade members decided that Brian Flores was not a minority because they didn't know who he was. And so the expectation was that either he was not black, and then he was black. But when you tell on yourself like this, you're seeing everything through the prism of color. And oftentimes, you aren't actually that well informed, as just happened with Jay Willams. Again, the Celtics can hire whoever they want to be their next basketball coach. But this is actually the 6th different Boston Celtics coach of color that there has been so far. And Jay Willams totally whiffed on this tweet. This is what being focused on identity politics can end up leading to if you're not careful. You end up seeing everything through the prism of color as opposed to using your brain. You react in the manner that Jay Willams did. All right, my name is Clay Travis. Already did Fox Bet Live for the day. Go download the Clay and Buck Show on podcast. You can search it out. My name, Clay Travis. You can search out Buck Sexton on iTunes. We are one of the highest rated podcasts out there. I think that you guys will enjoy it. Go download it. Make sure you don't miss a single episode of the program. We'll be live tomorrow, 12 to 3 Eastern, 11 to 2 Central, 10 to 1 Mountain, and 9 to noon on the West Coast. Over 400 different stations in all 50 states. I appreciate all of you. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. I am Clay Travis, and this has been OutKick the Show.